Good afternoon. I'm kind of your worst nightmare. I'm an economist talking about weather. So let's see how this goes. Go to the first slide. Let me introduce our company. It's Global Weather. We're based here in Boulder. We were formed by the National Center for Atmospheric Research here in Boulder. This is kind of a ground zero for atmospheric science. And so what we've done is we've really taken technology that was built at NCAR, which is usually used within the National Weather Services, and we've taken that to really provide better forecasts for a lot of different applications and uses. Just a little, we really don't get into the application business. We're kind of an arms supplier for weather, so we work with a lot of different companies. So what we do is we forecast the world every 15 minutes, every lat long in the world. And we provide data. We produce data for a lot of different companies, all the way from media, like, companies like AccuWeather and Yahoo and WeatherBug and so forth. And we do a lot in transportation in terms of when you drive along the road, forecasting the road surfaces. But we also do a lot in energy. And there what we do is we do a lot in renewables, a lot in wind. Now, of course, solar is growing, so we're doing solar, and we provide a lot of temperature data for load forecasting. But we tend not to be in the consulting or application business. What we do is we're providers to people like Ascend and other people in the area in this industry. What I'm going to do today, though, is I've been asked to kind of take you through our technology a little bit, and I'll do that, and then what I'll do is I'll put it in reference to Xcel Energy, which is one of our customers, and talk about what we do for them for wind and what we've learned, and go from there. So here's a diagram. You're a pretty technical group from what I can tell. I can't understand most of the presentations, but what we do is we do not provide weather models. What we do is we do something we call post-processing. What we do is we take advantage of all the weather models that are out there around the world, and you're aware of a lot of these types of models. But what we do is we use these as inputs. So we're taking European models, Japanese models, US models, and so forth, and we're leveraging what's best in them. So we're bringing these data sets in continuously, 24/7. We're also bringing in observational data, and you'll see this kind of as a theme as I go through. So we download all the METAR data around the world every 10 minutes. And so we're watching what ground truth is, and then what we're doing is we're going in and we're retuning the global models every 15 minutes. So we ingest this data. Is this a pointer right here? Great. So what we do is we ingest this data, which is these numerical models and weather information, and we bring in many, many different models. And what we do is we bias correct each one of them, because they all have different things they do well and they do poorly and so forth. So we're looking at each location, each variable, each lead time, and bias correcting these. And what we're attempting to do is refit the MOS equations that the National Weather Service has produced. What we call this is a dynamic MOS. So what we're doing is we're refitting this data every week because it changes. It is dynamic. It's not static like the National Weather Service is treated. And so what we do is we do bias corrections on all these models, and then we integrate it. We bring it together. We have large AI routines that we've been running for about 20 years that allow us to understand how to bring these models together into a single deterministic model. And these things are constantly being weighted and reweighted and reanalyzed. And so what you find is, of course, different models are doing better at different times, different locations, different lead times. We integrate that into a single forecast. And that is in this integration step. And that allows us to go through and continually search for the minimum error for all of this in terms of doing our weather forecast. The last step that we go through is we do a forward error correction. Because as we all know, forecast or forecast. So what we do in the last step, and this is usually in the 0 to 3 hour time frame, we recorrect the models. So this is what we call a forward error correction. And this one allows us to be far more accurate than you get out of things like the ECMWF or the GFS or any of those types of models. And then what we do is then we produce a number of different forecasts, like wind energy and solar. Another step that we've done is we also have been bring in all the global radar information. And we bring this in every 2 minutes. And what we do, and I won't touch the screen, what we do is we figure out where the storm cells are inside of the volume scans. And then we forecast a vector out every 5 minutes to figure out where that storm cell's going. That's really important when you start looking at precipitation and other things that do impact energy. This is called a nowcast. A lot of you have heard of this and so forth. But this comes into our numerical forecast as a persistence forecast, only in the 0 to 3 hour time frame. So what's the result? I've seen a number of spaghetti plots up here, so everybody will feel comfortable with this. Let me help you read this. So this is a 96-hour lead time forecast, going out 96 hours. And this is just temperature. I'm doing something really simple here. And each one of these little lines represent a different model, a different global model. Some of them are regional models and so forth, like the HER and so forth. And this shows their performance in terms of what their error is over these lead times. And this is in Celsius degrees. And you can see 1, 1.25, 1.5, 1.75. And so if you go through and you look, like, you know, everybody knows the GFS. Here's the GFS right here. See? And in terms of error performance, it's not very good. But if we go and we look at something like the ECMWF, which is heralded as one of the better models, that's in the yellow. You can see it kind of down here in the bunch, moving along. When you combine all these, the way I described before, you get this. And that's the single weighted averaged deterministic forecast that comes out of a consensus multi-model post-processing routine. So that's 96 hours. You can see 144 hours, you get the same thing. And the more interesting plot, I think, is when we look out 360 hours. And of course, that's taking us out beyond a week. And you can see right here, this is climatology. I added this in. So everybody's beating climatology until you get to about right here, about 200 hours. And you can see, as we look at the GFS never really does beat climatology. But you can see, like the ECMWF, look what happens out around 325 hours, 365 hours. It's outperforming everybody, even us. It's an amazing model.
Which one is doing that?
This is the ECMWF average ensemble. Okay? Anyway, I think that's interesting. So that gives you some idea in terms of verification against global models. And there are objective groups out there that compare you to other commercial forecasts. And this is done every month of the year. And what they do is they do temperature, they do wind. It's a group called Forecast Watch. And they just basically get all the commercial vendors' data and line it up and look at their RSE. And you can see these are all the usual names. Here's Global Weather. And here you can see our ranking and our RMSE. Then we have people like Medio Group. Of course, you expect them to do very well in Europe because they're a European-based company, although they forecast here. You can see AccuWeather and the others. And then you go over to Asia, and you can see how different groups. Medio Group does really well in Asia. We do, too. Weather Channel. And then as you go into the U.S., You kind of see the commercial rankings. Most people don't see that, but it's a service provided by a group out of Ohio. It's called Forecast Watch, and they hold your feet to the fire. Every month that comes out. So let's kind of talk about this in reference to Xcel Energy. So just a little bit of background on Xcel. They claim to be the #1 U.S. wind power provider in the U.S. They forecast, they provide energy for northern states, PSCO, which is Public Service of Colorado right here. And then, of course, as you get down in it, SPSS. They are currently at about 22% of total energy supply today. We've seen days up in the high 60s. But right now we're doing a total of about 22% with 68 wind farms at about 7 gigawatts across these 8 states. And they're now starting to bring on more and more solar. So let's talk about wind. I started with kind of the bottom line. And the bottom line is, does a better forecast save you any money? And what we do with Xcel is we took over all their forecasting in 2009, working with the National Center for Atmospheric Research and Xcel Energy, and we built what we think is a better mousetrap. And over that time, these are our performance numbers. Total Xcel, we were at about 16.71. We run about 11. We do see months where we're down at 7 and 8 and so forth. Here's the improvement. And then what we do is we measure it against the opportunity cost in terms of how much money have we saved due to a better forecast. And these numbers are produced by Xcel. It's about 66 million because of a better forecast. And so when you kind of boil this down, what's a 1% improvement worth? It's worth about $52,000 per 100 megawatts annually to have a better forecast. So now let's kind of dig back into the technology a little bit. I love this slide. So this is altitude, this is longitude, and this is wind speed right here. So as you go up, you get much higher wind speeds. As you come down off the mountains, here's our little wind farm down here. But the thing that you can see here is that it's chaotic, very chaotic. And when you translate this into wind speeds on a farm, it's not like a single linear dimensional thing. It looks like one of these spaghetti plots. So if you look at each wind turbine in a farm, like we're looking at here, they're just getting impacted totally differently. You can't just assume one wind speed. So one of the things that we do, kind of going back when I started talking about our technology, is we pull the observational data off of each wind turbine, every one of them. And what we do is we empirically determine what the power curve is, because where that wind turbine is placed makes a huge difference in terms of wind speed and its power output. And when you can start capturing all of that, you do a much better job of forecasting power, which is, again, very chaotic. So here's a diagram, just kind of how it rolls through. It's kind of familiar to the first slide I did. So what do? We go through, we bring in all this observational information. We're right into their SCADA systems. So we're pulling their power information and their wind speed information off their nacelles, the anemometers on the nacelles. So we're pulling that information and we're bringing it into our technology, which is called diecast. And then what we're doing, and we're using a number of models here. That changes over time depending on which model is performing best. And then what we do is we bring that and we pass that through a power curve. Now, one thing that's important, and I'm going to go into this a little bit more, is not all wind turbine power curves are created equally like we would hope. They're all different. And then what we do is we produce the output, and it goes into displays. So if you ever go down to Xcel, you see our wind displays setting up in their ops room. And then we also pass this information to some of the other routines they do. one of the things I'll say is that they've gotten to the point at Excel where the meteorologists there really don't even touch the forecast anymore. They just leave it alone because, on average, we do better than the human. Maybe you can pick periods certainly where we don't do better, but on average, as you look at it year after year, the machine's doing better. So this is kind of what they look at. And if you've been in your utility, there's different providers and they have different displays. But what we do is we're providing a new forecast every 15 minutes. We have some customers that now want it every 5 minutes, and we do that. And what we do here is we forecast the metered power and the potential power. And that's this green line that you see right here. And then we do it, as I said, not only hourly, which is this line, but we also do it every 15 minutes, which is the blue line. And so we're providing them both potential power and available power, right? Because there's a lot of things going on with O&M and high-speed cutouts and all that kind of stuff. All right. One feature we just added this year is extreme weather. And we have problems with icing. And those are the blowout days. Those cost us a lot of money. You're forecasting tons of wind, and you shut them all down because of icing. And so one of the things that we've done is we brought in this capability where we can do high wind controls for high-speed cutouts, temperature controls, and icing indexes. And this will give them some information, like right here, that this event is going to occur. And so what you'll do is start seeing a feathering or shutting down of different farms and so forth. And that helps us significantly because it's the blowout days that cost us a lot of money. A little bit on the power curves. This is a manufacturer's power curve, this yellow line. And this is the actual power curve in blue. These are just simply observational information in terms of power produced and wind speed. And you can see all these little dots right here. And what those are curtailments, high-speed cutouts. You know, you see this all the time. And what we do is we go through and take that information and we bin it so that we can get a better estimate of the power curve, and we take out these anomalous events. That way it gives us a better estimate of what that power curve really does look like and what that particular turbine is really able to produce. And then what we end up with is a power curve that looks like this. And we do this for every turbine. Okay. Another spaghetti plot. This is kind of a cool one. If you look at the green is observations. What if we did an untuned forecast? We just took the model data and applied it to a power curve, the manufacturer's power curve, and then what we do is we tune. So you can go through and you look at, here's the power being produced. And purple is the tuned forecast. You see it's kind of picking up those nice power spikes. And here's the untuned, right here. And you can see a significant difference. This is done over a month. So in the untuned forecast, we were getting an MAE of 2.26, and the tuned we were getting 1.27. That's common. We see that all the time. We do that. Okay? Let's go to solar real quick, and we'll finish up. Solar, we really stepped into this by working in the Sunshot grant. They gave us $4.1 million, and then there was another $2 million that came in to produce a better wind speed forecast. And we worked with all these players. Most of the work happened out at NRAL and here at NCAR in terms of the actual science and the systems build-up. But Sunshot is where it all kind of really began for us a few years back. Same kind of setup as you saw in wind. The only difference now is we're bringing in data from solar farms rather than wind farms, using the same models and so forth. And what it allows us to do is do a better job of fitting the shape of the power output. So again, in green, you can see the power, and then you can see the forecast. And when we first started doing this, we were tuning off of the solar irradiance. And we're getting these nice smooth curves here. And we started showing this to energy companies and saying, isn't this great? And they said, it's not smooth. And so what we did is we came back and reset. And now what we do is we build the power curves off of using historical power data, and allows us to get these nice sharp shoulders. And so we do a much better job of fitting to the actual power generation rather than what you would see if you're tuning off of solar radiance. Okay, sorry about that. That's turned a little bit. All right. So anyway, everybody likes to see verification and data. A lot of trials going on in solar. EPRI's been doing a number of these. This was done for Southern Company. I think I can get through this just fine. Done for Southern Company. They had a number of different players and so forth. These are MAE scores that are running through. And what happens is that in doing these, we see ourselves, we're coming in sometimes third, sometimes second, sometimes first, using this capability. But you can see there's quite a disparity in terms of quality of forecast, in terms of the actual MAEs. But these numbers are available from EPRI. The thing that they don't do is they disguise the names. They don't tell you who the different companies are and so forth. We're Columbia, and I don't know, Nile and so forth. Those are some other companies that are doing it. Anyway, those are the numbers. Anyway, thank you very much. Any questions for an economist about weather?
Yes. This is an economy question. So from a hydro forecast on the hydro operations, have you looked at the Sierras and putting warm, moist air on the snow? Any of those kind of relationships?
In terms of looking at
runoff?
Runoff. The only thing that we don't do any of the hydrology modeling. What we do in that area is we do forecast precipitation rates and quantities, and so we can do that, but we don't get into the hydrology modeling side. Yes.
Have you done any work with the wind turbine manufacturers? Are you aware of any efforts to send that forecast to the turbine control system so they can optimize and increase output?
You mean like a GE or something like that? We've talked to them, but it really boils down to the only people that have the incentive to do this are the PPA holders. Everybody else is like, accuracy is not that important to them.
Well, the manufacturers could offer it as a service.
Yeah, and we've talked to them about that, but they're not really that interested because their feet aren't held to the fire. We do see it on the O&M side a little bit,
yeah.
But again, those contracts only run for 3 years and so forth. And then it gets passed on to whoever the developer was or whatever may have happened. Okay. Yeah, but I thought that was a great idea too. But
yeah.
but it gets down to the PPA holder.
Yeah, I'm with you actually, so we should talk.
All right.